Okay, so in order to decide if a graph is a function, it has to first pass the vertical line test, and then to see if it's one-to-one, it has to pass the horizontal line test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check to make sure none of my points on this first graph are failing the vertical line test. It passes, it's a function. Then I want to see if it passes the horizontal line test. It does not. So this one fails the horizontal line test. On number 2, I want to make sure it's a function, passes the vertical line test. This one also will pass the horizontal line test because that one is not a straight line, it's getting closer to it. So this one is one-to-one. Number 3, C. I do the vertical line test, it fails the vertical line test. Okay. Then D, I do the vertical line test, it passes. Then I do the horizontal line test, it passes. So this one is one-to-one. Okay. Number 2 gives me 2 functions, and it wants me to decide if they are inverses of each other. I have to find f of g of x and g of f of x, and then decide. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to plug f of x into g of x. So this one is g of f of x. Okay, then I want to simplify. I have g of f of x, I forgot my parentheses there, equals, I multiply straight across, so I have 9 over x. This didn't simplify to x, so this is not one-to-one. I mean, not inverse. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing for b, so I'm going to take this and plug in for the x for g of x. So I have g of f of x okay, and I have g of f of x equals negative x plus 1 plus 1, which gives me g of f of x equals negative x plus 2. Also doesn't cancel out, so this one is not an inverse. I should be just left with x if it is an inverse. Okay. Number 3 gives me 2 functions and wants me to find the different things. A wants me to find the inverse of g of 3. So for this one, I need to find where the y value is 3 and then give the x value. So this is 7. B wants me to find the inverse function. So I start off by switching x and y. And then solving for y, I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. I have x minus 4 equals 2y. Divide both sides by 2. I get y equals x minus 4 over 2. I can simplify this, so it would be x halves minus 2. And then I write h inverse of x equals h of x over 2 minus 2. Okay. C wants us to find h of h inverse of negative 3. Anytime it asks me to find a composition function of a number, remember, just like I was saying before, it should output the input. So this one will always be whatever number it tells me. This one is going to result in negative 3. Okay. So this one gives me a one-to-one function defined as f of x equals x cubed minus 3. And it wants me just to find the inverse, so I'm going to switch x and y. Since it's cubed, I don't need to worry about restricting my domain. I only need to restrict my domain when it has an even power. I have x plus 3 equals y cubed. Then I want to take the cube root on both sides to get rid of it. I have y equals the cube root of x plus 3. And that is my answer. Okay, number 5 gives me a graph and it wants me to graph the inverse. What I am going to do is I am going to draw my line y equals x. This is the line I am reflecting over. So I'm going to draw this as a dash because it's not my actual graph. And then what I'm going to do is each point is going to flip over that. So this one is on the line, it stays there. This one is 0, -1, so it's going to go to 1, -1, 0. And then this one is also on the line. So then I just connect those 3, and it should be a mirror image. Oh, it's kind of looking like a fish. Okay, this one gives me a function, and it wants me to find the value for each x in the table. So if I have 4 to the -2, remember, negative exponents make it a fraction, and then I find the power. 4 squared is 16. 4 to the -1 is a fraction. 4 to the first power is 4. 4 to the 0 power, and much more, anything to the 0 power is always 1. 4 to the first power is 4, and 4 squared is 16. This one wants me to graph the exponential function. What I am going to do here is I am going to type it into my calculator. Like this on the y equals. Then what I want to do is I'm going to go second graph to see my table of values, and I'm going to go plot those points. I have -1, 4, 0, 3, let's do 1, 2.25, so a little more than 2. I have 2, 1.6, so a little more than halfway. 3, 1.26. 4 is a little less than 1. And I will connect these and make the curve shape. Alright, moving on. This one gives me the graph y equals e to the x. It wants me to transform it to make the new graph and then give the domain and range of the new one. So I'm going to point out what changes are going. It reflects across the y-axis and goes down 2. So this is crossing at 1, so going down 2 would make it cross at -1, and then it just reflects. So instead of having an asymptote at 0, it is going to have an asymptote at -2. And then reflecting across the y-axis makes it look like this. It wants the domain and range. Domain can be anything, any x value can be plugged in, so I have -infinity to infinity. And for my range, it's always above the line y equals -2. So it would be y is greater than or equal to -2, but to write it in the notation we've been using, we use a parenthesis. It shouldn't be equals to, it doesn't cross that line. We use a parenthesis, and then we go up to infinity. Number 9 is a word problem. It says if the rate of inflation of an antique doll is 3.4%, the future price P of t in dollars of the doll can be modeled by the following exponential function. P of t equals 150 times 1.034 to the t power, where t is the number of years today. It wants to find the current price of the doll and the price 5 years from today. So the current price is going to be the number out front. And the price 5 years from today is I plug in 5 into that function. So P of 5 equals 150 times 1.034 to the 5th power. And I will type this into the calculator. Which gives me 177. It wants it rounded to the nearest dollar, so that doesn't round up. $177. Okay. Number 10 wants me to use my calculator to evaluate the expressions below. So for A, I'm going to do 43, then go second, and if I look above the ln button is an E with an exponent. Oh, it wasn't even on the screen. Right here. And then I type in the decimal exponent, and I get 54 point, I'll do 5 decimal points since it doesn't tell me, 66371. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing for B. This one is e to the -1. -0.1, my bad. And I get 0.9048, and then that number is going to round 4. Okay. The next one wants me to find or solve the equation. 128 and 16 are both powers of 2. I need to rewrite it, so to figure this out, what I want to do is, I don't know what power of 2 128 is, so I'm going to keep dividing. So it goes by 2, 2, 2, 5, 6, and then 7 to count the 2 I get as an answer. So I get 2 to the 7. 16 is 2 to the 4th power. And then I write this in parentheses with x minus 2. 2 to the 7 equals 4x. I distribute. And then I have 4 times the -2, which gives me -8. Since I have the same base, I can now set my exponents equal to each other. So I have 7 equals 4x minus 8. I add 8 to both sides. I get 15 equals 4x, and I divide by 4. I can leave this as a fraction. I get 15/4 for my final answer. Okay, number 12 wants me to rewrite each expression as requested. It wants me to rewrite this as an exponential. This one has a base of e, so I swap the y in the form. It's going to be e to the y equals 4. B wants me to turn it into a logarithmic equation. Whenever I have base e, I write ln instead, and then I switch the x and the 7. Okay. This one gives me a graph and then wants me to transform it. This is going to move it right 2. And this one is going to move it up 3. So this 0.10 is going to the right 2, up 3. Then the asymptote right here was at 0. It's also going to go right 2. So now it's going to be at 2. And I can sketch that graph. Okay. Number 14 wants me to solve. I'm going to use the turning back into an exponential. So I have 4 to the -4 power equals x. And then I just need to solve that. I have 1 over, and then I can do 4 to the 4th power on my calculator, which gives me 256. Okay. Number 15 wants me to use properties of logarithms to expand log of x to the 4th over y squared. So the first thing I do is I split it into subtraction. Remember, division turns into subtraction. Then what I do is, if I have an exponent, exponents go out front. So both of those are going to move. I have 4 log x minus 2 log y. That's my final answer. Turning it back into a single logarithm, remember exponents are the numbers written out front. So I'm going to move all those back. I have log base 2w cubed minus log base 2. When I have a fraction exponent, remember this is a radical. I'm going to write this as the square root of x, and then plus log base 2 y to the 4th. Then I'm going to go ahead and combine it some more. I still have log base 2 out front. W cubed is going to go just out there. Whenever I have subtraction, it makes a division. So I have over square root of x, and then it has plus, so that goes on the top, y to the 4th. Number 17 wants me to solve, so I'm going to start by turning it back into an exponential equation. I have 4 cubed equals 4x plus 5. 4 cubed is 64. And then I want to go ahead and subtract 5 on both sides. 64 minus 5 is 59. Equals 4x. Divide by 4 on both sides. I am going to leave it as a fraction. I don't know if Alex asks for it as a decimal, but you can divide if it does. Okay, moving on. Number 18 is telling me that after expanding their area of operations, a manufacturer of a small storage building believes that the area can support sales of 40 units per month. After increasing their advertising budget and enlarging the sales force, the sales numbers are expected to grow according to the model S of t equals 40 divided by 1 plus 1.5 e to the negative 0.08t, where S of t is the number of expected sales after t months. It's asking what the initial number of sales is, and this is the number from when I plug in 0 because 0 time has passed. So I have 40 over 1 plus 1.5 e to the negative 0.08 times 0. And I'm going to go ahead and type that into my calculator. So 40 goes on top, and then I want to be careful if I'm on any calculator. I want to put it in parentheses for the bottom. So I have 1 plus 1.5 e negative 0.08 times 0. And then I want to close off my parentheses, and it gives me 16. Units. Okay, and then it wants to know how many after 7 months, so this time I'm going to plug in 7 for t. So I have 40 over the 1 plus 1.5 e to the negative 0.08 times 7. I'm going to type that into the calculator. Nope. And this one gives me 21.5, so I'll round up to 22. Okay. Number 19 wants me to solve and then round my answer to the nearest hundredth. What I'm going to first do is I am going to move this back in as an exponent there. So I have ln. And then when I put it back as an exponent, each piece gets the exponent. So I have 5 squared x squared equals negative 2. 5 squared is 25, x squared is x squared. Since it's ln, that means my base is e, so when I go to rewrite it, I have e to the negative 2 equals 25x squared. It wants me to keep going, so I need to figure out what e to the negative 2 is. I am going to approximate this on my paper, but leave that in the calculator. So I have 1.35, we'll do 34, equals 25x squared. Then what I want to do next is I want to divide both sides by 25. which gives me 0.005413. It equals x squared. So I need to take the square root of that. To do that, I go second square root, nope, not second square root, second x squared, and then to get my answer from above, I'm going to go second, and if I look right above the negative sign, it says answer. That will give me my answer from before. And then I press enter, and it gives me 0.07. Now I can round to the nearest hundredth, which would be 4. And I only went for the positive number because natural logarithms can only have positive inputs. Okay. This one over here wants me to solve. What I want to do is I want to get all of my logs on the same side. So I'm going to add log of x on both sides. I have log of 3x minus 13 plus log x equals 2. Then what I want to do is I want to combine my logarithms. Because it's plus, I'm going to multiply. So I have log, I'm distributing to each piece. So I have 3x squared and then negative 13x equals 2. Then I want to rewrite this. Since it's a log with no base, I assume it's 10. I have 10 squared equals 3x squared minus 13x. 10 squared is 100. Then I want to go ahead and get 100 over to the other side. Equals 0. Then I want to factor. I'm going to use the AC method. A times C, 3 times negative 100 equals negative 300. Then I want to find my factors of negative 300 that add up to negative 13. It's 25 and 12. So negative 25 plus 12 equals negative 13. I'm going to split it up. I have 3x squared. I'll put the 25 with the 100. So I have plus 12x minus 25x minus 100 equals 0. Then I want to split it up by grouping. In my first group, I can take out 3x, and I'm left with x plus 4. In my second group, I can take out negative 25, and I'm left with x plus 4. I apologize, on mine I do not have enough room. I will give you more room on yours. Then I want to rewrite. I have 3x minus 25 equals 0. And x plus 4 equals 0. I solve those both. I add 25 to both sides. I have 3x equals 25. Divide by 3. X equals 25 thirds. Over here I subtract 4. I get x equals negative 4. Because I have log of x, I cannot plug in anything that is negative. So plugging in negative 4 won't work. That's not an answer, but 25 thirds is. Number 21 wants me to solve. What I am going to do is I am going to write it as log base 5. 8 equals negative 3x. I am going to solve that. On this calculator, if I go math and then down to choice A, there is log base. I type in 5 and then 8, and it gives me 1.292. I'll just do, yeah, that's right. 1.292 equals negative 3x. Then what I want to do from here is I want to divide by 3 on both sides. Negative 3 on both sides. So I have 1.292 divided by negative 3, which gives me negative 0.43, that rounds up, 1. Another thing, if I didn't have a calculator that was as new as this one, what I could do to get my log base, I could do change of base, which is log 8 divided by log 5. So you take the number that you want and then divide by your log, and that gives me the same number, 1.292. Okay. Number 22 wants us to solve. Since this one is an e-base, I can rewrite it as negative 4x equals ln 9. What I'm going to do for this one is I'm actually going to divide by negative 4 on both sides before I type it into the calculator, so it'll do all the math for me without the decimals. So I have ln 9, close off my parentheses, divided by negative 4, and then nearest hundredth, so I have negative 0.549. Hundredth is actually the place before it, so 0.55.